Fear me, I've killed hundreds of Time Lords.
Fear me, I've killed all of them.
It was no small feat to revive a British sci-fi icon for a modern audience. Could have easily backfired, but Eccleston's portrayal was sharp, grounded and emotionally rich. He introduced a war-haunted Doctor who'd just survived a mysterious time war.
A Time Lord, and the last of the Time Lords. They're all gone. I'm the only survivor.
Setting the stage for a darker, more layered incarnation. With showrunner Russell T Davies at the helm, the show walked a tightrope between honouring its legacy and appealing to new fans. Billie Piper's Rose Tyler became an every-woman entry point into the world of time travel, monsters and moral dilemmas. This was a Doctor Who felt real, brimming with regret, warmth and an occasional edge. Eccleston laid the groundwork that made the success of Tennant and Smith possible, crafting a version of the Doctor that felt both alien and painfully human. His run was brief, but it was the spark that reignited a dormant TARDIS and paved the way for what many now call the show's modern golden age. Behind the scenes, however, Eccleston's time was fraught with tension. He left the show after just one season, citing irreconcilable differences with the senior production staff. Later, interviews revealed his frustrations with the work environment and his firm stance against what he described as toxic culture. His departure, while disappointing, underscored a reality fans often overlook. Even the Doctor isn't immune to studio politics.
Before I go, I just want to tell you, you were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And you know what? So was I.
Now the Golden Age, with everyone's, well, not everyone's, but most people's favourite Doctor, David Tennant, and then Matt Smith, most people's second favourite Doctor, I would say. Now, David Tennant's 10th Doctor became a fan favourite almost immediately. He was witty, romantic and emotionally complex. His tenure delivered iconic episodes and layered arcs, from the tragic love story with Rose Tyler, the deep lore surrounding the Time War, the Doctor's guilt, an occasional peek at the Time Lord's return. Tennant's era struck a powerful balance of heart and spectacle. The mythos got expanded as well. Bad Wolf, the face of Bo's cryptic messages, Torchwood's spin-off and the haunting idea that the Time Lords may return as villains, all hinted at a large tapestry of interwoven stories. The theory that the Weeping Angels were Time Lords punished into quantum lock added depth to the show's growing mystery. Even the woman who silently watched the 10th Doctor from afar was rumoured and then confirmed to be his mother. That was confirmed by Russell T Davies in an interview. When Matt Smith took over, the show became more whimsical but retained a narrative through line. The 11th Doctor's arc concluded with The Day of the Doctor, where the Doctor confronts his war-torn past and chooses hope over destruction. The introduction of the War Doctor, the restoration of Gallifrey, could have offered the perfect end. Smith's regeneration into a new cycle of lives reset the table. The Doctor could have started anew, or the story could have ended poetically. Instead, the series pressed on.
I probably blame the English. I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Now, in mentioning this, I am also doing another video on studios that refuse to let go of their characters and ideas and don't really give them a proper send-off. They just try to milk them dry, and I think probably most of you watching are tired of it. I know I am, and that video will be coming soon, so if you haven't already, please subscribe and that'll be coming in a week or so.
We're the most civilized civilization in the universe. We're billions of years beyond your petty human obsession with gender and its associated stereotypes.
Afraid?
You mean I'm going to turn into a woman and you don't even remember it happening?
Oh.
She's not, because the Doctor's male and female.
And neither. And more.
I don't know, but I probably blame the English.
The post-Smith shift, fractured lore and creative drift. Peter Capaldi brought gravitas.
The Doctor of War is he's unarmed.
I can do whatever the hell I like. You've read the stories. You know who I am. The Doctor is no longer here. You are stuck with me. And I will end you and everything you love.
But the writing grew inconsistent. Lore became convoluted, tone shifts were frequent, and the once careful continuity started bending under the weight of rebooting without purpose. Now, I say without purpose, but I think we all know that there was definitely some background politics that were trying to be shoved into the show that trickled down into the writing. Now, Clara Oswald's endlessly retconned presence, Missy's erratic arc, and the overuse of time travel paradoxes alienated many long-time fans. I'd tuned out by this point, but I have watched some of the clips, and Capaldi, although he's a great actor, I love pretty much everything that I've seen him in. I don't think even he could have saved the writing of the show and the way that it was going. And then came Jodie Whittaker.
The Doctor is a man.
I've had an upgrade.
The 13th Doctor, and for the first time, the character regenerated into a woman. Now, while the change had precedent in its lore, its execution sparked fierce debate. The show embraced overt political commentary, often at the expense of narrative cohesion. The Timeless Child, everyone that is a Whovian, a fan, will know, retconned and fractured established canon, rewriting the Doctor as an infinite being, predating Gallifrey itself. Fans weren't just watching a change in casting, they were watching the mythology itself be overwritten. Now, if you're a long-time fan and you'd forced yourself to watch up to this point, hoping that it would get better, pretty sure this is where the majority of people tuned out. It was all downhill pretty much from when Capaldi left, although again I still stick by the fact that I think it should have ended at Matt Smith's regeneration. So I can't help but think The Timeless Child was a point of no return. It was a retcon that can't very easily be undone. It ruined a lot of fans' goodwill with where the Doctor might be going. So how might they have fixed this? I just want to touch on this very quickly and not spend a lot of time with it, but I feel like The Timeless Child could have been anyone but the Doctor. And then you have an array of storylines that you could go through. The Doctor maybe has to save the child, Tecteun, whatever her name is, because again I'd stopped watching at this point. Maybe the Doctor needs to save the child from her. Tecteun maybe then becomes one of the major antagonists. The child maybe dies in some way, shape or form, giving the power of regeneration to the Doctor, thus making the Doctor the Timeless Child, instead of making the Doctor the Timeless Child to begin with. Then, with the Doctor having unlimited regenerations now, the Time Lords will come after him, her, whatever the Doctor goes by now. So you've got that aspect, and then you could also have the aspect of villains now trying to capture the Doctor to duplicate the regeneration ability, like the Time Lords, with their species. And you could have a character like Davros who, although they did take him out of a wheelchair, maybe you could have then had him stealing the power of regeneration, and instead of having to dig up the Master every other season to give the Doctor another Time Lord villain, you could then make a villain like Davros have the power of regeneration by kidnapping the Doctor and torturing him and experimenting on him for years or centuries. Hell, make it really horrific, why not? So yeah, that would be my idea to fix the Timeless Child. Going by the viewing figures, which I'll show in a second, we can see that there is a massive decline from when we had the golden age of Tennant and Smith to Capaldi, where there was a massive reduction, to then it continuing still, even though there was a slight bump with a female lead, to decline. Now, we won't go into audience ratings too much, but you can imagine, based on the polarized views of online audiences, the audience score wasn't exactly the best. Once we got to Whittaker and then Ncuti Gatwa, a lot of the studio, the actors, are blaming fans for the failure of the Doctor Who franchise. And instead of embracing feedback and listening to fans and making changes that the fans might want, they just doubled down. And, well, we'll get into where we got to now. Ncuti Gatwa and the 6-day specials. David Tennant returned, the 14th Doctor, and again, this is just the studio using nostalgia bait again and again and again, hoping to bring back long-term fans, but refusing to change the narrative from the nonsense that they've portrayed on screen. And as a fan of the Doctor myself, even though I tuned out after Matt Smith, I feel if the show was done well, I might still be watching. I liked Doctor Who being somewhat of a kid's show, not really taking itself too seriously, not getting too involved in real world events and politics and ideologies. Obviously it does that, but not in a you must sit up and pay attention way, you know? There's always aliens involved or some background storyline that takes place during something that happened in history, and it's a good way to appreciate our history while not patronizing you, you know? And I feel that's the problem with a lot of these shows, a lot of these movies nowadays. And again, this is going to be in my video in a week or so. They should have some idea of their audience, their core audience, but they don't care. They're more interested in pushing what they want to write about rather than what's going to make them money and what their audience wants to see. Now, I was watching Nerdrotic in preparation for this video. I was getting more and more recommendation for Doctor Who videos by watching clips and so on. And because I'd not seen it in that long, and I'll get into this scene in a second, but I thought it was fake. I thought this must be AI, this must be a skit or something. And it isn't. And if you've not watched Doctor Who since Tennant or Matt Smith or even Capaldi or Whittaker, you might not even have seen this scene either. And I'll get this clip up.
We've still got to fix you two, because the meta-crisis might have slowed down, but that thing is wrapped around your cortex.
Yes, we know.
We know everything. Thanks.
And you know nothing. It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. She'd have understood.
We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting time...
Is that a radical left lunatic?
Things will really rejoice when this happens.
Blame the English.
My reaction at the time was, no way that's real, because it's just such poor writing, it's such nonsense. It just makes you want to turn the TV off.
Enough with the curse words, all right?
Kiss my sweaty balls, you fat...
Now, I probably will get a lot of hate for that, but when I watch programs, if I wanted political messaging, gender ideology, I would watch a program that is clearly about that. When people tune in to watch something like Doctor Who, they watch it to watch a sci-fi comedy action, not to hear about how the Doctor, being the smartest man in the universe, or at least he's meant to be, not knowing anything because he's not a woman anymore, and then being told things like male presenting Time Lord will never understand. It's just disappointing. And unfortunately, the showrunners, the writers, they're unapologetic about it. They don't care. The BBC themselves have come out before and apologised. Well, somewhat of a backhanded apology. They apologised for the way we felt about change. And then just continued with it. I think it was about The Timeless Child. The BBC apologised how people felt about it, and then continued with it. It's a bit like having an argument with your partner. And well, if you've ever been in this situation, fellas, you never really want to say it. I'm sorry you feel that way, but because that's just never going to end well. And well, with Ncuti Gatwa's reign, we can see that it didn't really end well when he took over, because again, they were unapologetic. Well, he was. I'm sorry you feel that way, but if you don't like it, don't watch, go touch grass. Well, many did. And again, the viewing figures reflect that. Anyway, I strolled off topic a bit. So, Ncuti Gatwa, David Tennant returned, the 60th anniversary for the Star Beast. The Doctor is corrected in this episode for assuming pronouns of an alien, scolded by Donna and her daughter Rose, who's a transgender character, and repeatedly sidelined in solving key problems. One scene has Donna quipping, "Shame you're not a woman anymore, she'd have understood," while Rose adds the solution is something a male presenting Time Lord will never understand, as if men and women think that differently, that a woman is superior because of the way she thinks. These moments, intended as meta-commentary or comedy, were seen by some as just a symbolism of the new creative direction, one where the Doctor's less a hero and just a punchline. Hints of queer identity were introduced with Tennant as well, with the Doctor openly flirting with Isaac Newton.
Was it me, or was Isaac Newton hot?
He was, wasn't he? He was so hot.
Shift from previously more heterosexual presentations. While many applauded the inclusion, others felt it was a marked departure from the established identity of this specific incarnation of the character. Tennant returning to a very different role, script and atmosphere was to some a choice that didn't land. Now, a fractured fan base is what happened years ago, but it just continued to fracture still. It's as if someone's got a nail on a pane of glass and then just continued to hammer at it with every new anniversary special, season finale, and backlash was inevitable, and it was loud. The hashtag #RipDoctorWho trended after the specials aired, with the critics accusing the show of being more interested in politics than storytelling. Supporters defended the changes as long overdue, and true to the spirit of inclusion the show has always championed, but the tension was clear. Doctor Who had stopped being must-watch TV for many, many of its core viewers. Ratings declined, viewership peaked during the Tennant and Smith years, and have just steadily dropped during Whittaker's run. Despite heavy marketing, a partnership with Disney Plus, new viewership in the US. The media spin tried to present these seasons as fresh, bold. Fan forums and social media, though, painted a very different picture. Confusion, alienation, sense that the show no longer respected its own history. And it doesn't help that you get news articles and actors coming out for not just this show, but various other shows saying that it's being review bombed. Review bombed implies to me that people are being spiteful, not watching it and then reviewing it without knowing what's happening. Or maybe that they're making loads of accounts or bots are doing it or something like that. It's not. And I think the ratings, the viewership decline, all of this logically should add up in your head as this is just not a good show anymore. The writing is bad, not the audience is wrong. But again, with the BBC and Russell T Davies, probably talking to a brick wall. So, in conclusion, Doctor Who, once a masterclass in science fiction storytelling, it wove myth, meaning, legacy, reinvention, but after Matt Smith's era, it's seen a breakdown in narrative focus, tonal inconsistencies, loss in fan trust, and it isn't about whether the Doctor is male, female, straight or queer. It's about whether the stories still resonate, whether the lore still matters, and whether the characters remain true to the values and mystery that made them iconic, and well, they don't. The Doctor is infinite now. Unlimited regenerations. It makes you question if there's any point in continuing to watch, with there being no mystery around Gallifrey and the Doctor anymore and his origin. You know, what drove a lot of the mystery behind him, or them, I guess. Eccleston revived the legend. Tennant and Smith made it soar. Since then, showrunners, writers have wandered from what worked, and chasing reinvention, they've lost the soul of the show. The downfall isn't down to one actor, one writer, or one era. It's a cumulative amount of choices that ignored the fans, the canon, and the heart of who the Doctor is. Now, the question isn't where the TARDIS will go next, but whether there's anyone who even wants to travel with it. Anyway, thanks for watching. As I mentioned before, like, subscribe, share with your pals, and cheerio.
Sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner, and I'll come back.